We are going to continue to practice how to solve algebraic equations in this video. The first equation that we are going to look at is 10x plus 8 equals 3x plus 22. In my last video, I talked about how when we are solving algebraic equations, it's really important that we get to the spot where we have one thing equals one thing. Right now in this problem, I have two things, or terms that they're called, is equal to two things. So I need to get rid of one thing on each side of the equal sign, so I am left with 1 equals 1 thing. So to start off, I am going to look at the numbers that don't have any x's next to it. It's just the number by itself. So in this equation, those numbers are 8 and 22. So I am going to use inverse operations, or opposites, to get rid of one of these. So in both cases, I am adding. So the opposite of adding is subtracting. Here I have two options. I could subtract 8 from both sides, or I could subtract 22 from both sides. Now either way, in the end you'll get the correct answer, but I personally think that one way is easier. If I look at this, here I'm doing 8 minus 22. Now, if I do that, that will give me a negative number. Like I said, in the end it'll work out, but I'd prefer to not work with negative numbers. So I would not really want to subtract 22 from 8. Instead, I will subtract 8 from both sides. 22 minus 8 here, this is a little bit easier for me to do. I'll get a positive answer this way. So I'm left with, I didn't do anything with the x's, didn't take any away, so I still have 10 x's, plus a positive 8 minus 8, 0, equals, didn't do anything with the x's here either, 3x, plus 22 minus 8 equals 14. Now this plus 0 here doesn't change anything. If I add 0, everything would still stay the same, so I can get rid of that. Now I have 10x equals 3x plus 14. So now I have one thing on the left, which is good. I want one thing on each side of the equal sign, but I still have two things on the right. I only want one, so that means I need to get rid of one of these. I am adding here, so that means I need to subtract. I'm doing opposites here. Subtracting is the opposite of adding. So I just need to decide, do I do minus 3x or minus 14? Well, if I do minus 14, I have to do it on the other side as well, but I have a problem here. I have 10 x's, but here I just have 14. I can't take away just a number from a number with an x. I can't take away just 14 from 10 x's. So that tells me instead I need to subtract 3 x's. Well, if I have 10 x's, I take away 3 x's. I'm left with 7 x's equals, if I have 3 x's, I take away 3 x's, I have none left, plus 14. I don't need this plus 0, doesn't change anything. So now I have 7x equals 14. Well, I know that this 7 written right next to the x, that means multiply. So this is the same as 7 times x. I am going to still be using opposites here. I'm left with one thing on the left side, one thing on the right side. Perfect. So now I can use the opposite of multiply. Opposite of multiplying is dividing. So if I have times 7, I will divide by 7 on both sides. 7 divided by 7 is 1 times x equals 14 divided by 7, 2. This 1 times here doesn't change anything. If I multiply a number by 1, it'll just equal itself. So I can get rid of that now. In the end, I have my answer here. X equals 2. Here are now 3 problems for you to try on your own. So you can write these problems down, pause the video, and solve them. After you have figured out the answers, you can play the video again to check your answers. Here are the answers that you should have had. X equals 3, x equals 3 again, and x equals 0.5. If you got any of these wrong, see if you can figure out where you made the mistake. If you're still confused, especially on what to do if you see a minus or if you end up with a decimal, I go through how to solve problems like this in my first video about solving algebraic equations. So you can go back to that section of the first video and see how I do problems like this. And this will be the end of the second part of solving equations. In my third part of the solving equations videos, I will go through how to write algebraic equations to represent word problems.